third bullet, man. 2020 just keeps hitting us with bullets.
The big bullet.
The big bullet, man. The one that, I know me and you felt, people that look like us felt, is Black Lives Matter, man. Black Lives Matter has grown in 2020 to be the largest movement in U.S. history.
Powerful.
And that's following the death of George Floyd, R.I.P., Ahmaud Arbery, R.I.P., and Breonna Taylor.
Definitely. Some history with Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
It kind of began with a social media hashtag in 2013 after the acquittal of George Zimmerman. And the shooting of Trayvon Martin in 2012. Do you remember that moment?
I remember. Yep. I remember. Yep.
Yeah, I think the one that stuck out to me the most was the whole Skittles.
Yeah.
The whole Skittles thing. Like he bought a pack of Skittles or something. It was something like that.
Yeah, he went to the store. He bought a pack of Skittles. He was walking home at night. The whole thing is he had a hood on. And this guy, this murderer, George Zimmerman, decided to follow him. George Zimmerman called the police and said, there's this guy with a hood on. He suspected him of some type of crime. The police he let the police know that he was following this kid. The police told him to retreat, to back off. He did not, and he proceeded to fatally shoot Trayvon Martin.
Definitely. And then actually, back in that time, LeBron James and Miami Heat, they took a stand and they all wore hoods.
Yeah.
Okay. To stand together and to stand behind Trayvon Martin during that shooting. So that was kind of like when you started seeing remblances of protests in sports.
Right. And the movement grew even bigger after that. When I don't know if you remember when Mike Brown was shot in Minneapolis.
Right.
When he was shot in the street by a police officer. I think that's when
that was Missouri, right?
Missouri. Missouri. I think that's when BLM really started to gain some traction nationally.
I think they tried to paint Mike Brown as like some guerrilla, some thug guerrilla.
Yeah. He said he ran. I think they said he ran towards a police officer,
charged at him.
He stole from the store. He was coming it was a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
But the Black Lives Matter movement grew from there. But 2020 is when it really took off again with the killing of George Floyd. And I think George Floyd, it was a string of killings, right? It was Ahmaud Arbery, who was hunted. That one hurt me. I'm not gonna lie to you. That one, I remember. It was my day off, and I was taking Elijah for a walk. He was on his bike. And I think I saw it on Instagram and I scrolled by it, and I'm just like, another black man killed for no reason, another unarmed black man killed, and I didn't want to look at the video, so I scrolled by it and I kind of tried to ignore it, and I saw it by accident, and I remember I just froze, and my heart dropped, and I was I think from that whole day, I think that whole week, I was just in a dark place, man. Because it was literally, he was jogging in his own neighborhood, not bothering a soul, and he was literally hunted down by two men in a pickup truck and killed. And when you watch that video, it's heartbreaking because you see him fighting off the gunman. You could tell there wasn't even an opportunity for him to flee. There wasn't an opportunity to talk himself out of the situation. He knew in that moment, I have to fight for my life, or it's a wrap. And unfortunately, he was fatally shot, killed,
murdered.
And that one broke my heart again because Ahmaud Arbery was, a young kid. And
was he 26?
I'm not too sure how old he was, but a young kid nonetheless.
Yeah.
And we both got sons, man. So I remember being with my son and that hitting me, and I remember like a couple days after waking up and seeing my son and just hitting me like, yo, you know.
Yeah.
So that one hit me hard. That one
Yeah.
hit me hard.
You know what's interesting is one that hit me hard was actually before then.
Okay.
It was Tamir Rice in Cleveland.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that one, but Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old boy. He was playing with a toy gun at the park.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
they
yeah.
show footage of a cop pulling up at a park, literally rolling down his window, shooting the kid, and driving off.
That's crazy.
That boy is 12 years old, playing with a toy gun, and you're shooting. It looked like from in his car.
Right.
You know that hit me hard, and along with Eric Garner in New York, there's just a video of him getting choked out. You know,
Yeah.
for selling cigarettes. He's getting choked out on the street, and he's telling you,
I
can't breathe.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like when you're subduing somebody, do they have to be being choked out the entire time?
Right.
Like when you have multiple officers there, you
Right.
got the man on the ground.
He's unarmed.
Let go of his neck, let him breathe, cuff him, and do what you do.
Right.
But the fact that you maintain the clinch and he's telling you, and the only way he could is I can't breathe.
Right.
How many, you know, you're without air, you can barely talk.
Right. Right.
So, you know, so it just kind of showed, you know, the mentality of the officer where he didn't care about this man's life.
Right.
His life was literally in his arms, and he did not care.
And he took it. And he took it.
And he took it.
And I think that just speaks to the fact that, you know, police officers, not all of them, right? But they look at, I feel, black and brown people in a certain light. I feel like they have grown to and are taught to, in some cases, to fear black people, and deem our lives invaluable.
Yeah, they you know, from an initial, you know, glance, you would think that, you know, white people look at black people as a threat. You know, they see what they see on TV
Right.
about us, what they show, what they portray in the media.
Right.
Music, you know,
Right.
our music isn't the best when it comes to certain, you know, topics that we decide to talk about in music.
Doesn't always put us in the best light.
But it paints a picture to people who don't understand the culture of, you know, violence and just everything negative associated with black people. So
Right.
when you don't interact with black people, you don't have friends or family, you know, you're kind of forced to view these stereotypes and believe them. You know, because you don't have any prior firsthand experience.
And that's either consciously or subconsciously.
Definitely. And when you look at it through that lens, you can kind of find a lot of ways to justify the murder of somebody who's of darker hue. And, you know, it's scary. It's a scary thought, you know, being an adult and having black sons.
Right.
You know, that one day they're gonna want to go to the park by themselves, or they're gonna want to go hang out with their friends by themselves,
or they're gonna want to go jogging in the neighborhood.
They're gonna go jogging in their neighborhood, and somebody could be having a bad day, and something could happen, and it could be, you know, the worst, and that's not something that we wish for anybody. You know, anybody. It doesn't matter what race you are. Nobody wants to experience, you know, their child not being here.
Right. Absolutely.
You know? So that's when you get to that level of empathy, then you can kind of see, you know, how we feel about it, you know, because when you're watching people who look like you on TV in the country, in the state, in the city you live in, being treated inhumanely, it has to have an effect on you because
Absolutely.
You know how you're perceived. And it's
Right.
not that, you know, we have any ill intention going out, but we're just living our lives just like anybody else. And, you know, the next time you get pulled over, is that the moment?
Right. And you said, you know, people that don't have an understanding of, you know, black people or black culture or whatever, can sometimes see videos like this and justify why they were, you know, killed at the hands of the police or whatever the case is. In my opinion, you cannot justify that at all. In my opinion, looking at that, that's plain murder execution style.
Right.
Like there's nothing that can justify that. I don't care if he had a past criminal record. I don't care if he just stole from a store. I don't care if he hit you with, some, some swear word. I don't care what he did. It doesn't justify you pulling out your gun and shooting someone down, or putting your knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Like, if you do anything for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and apply pressure to anything for 8 minutes, the outcome's not going to be good. That's common sense. That's not something you can manipulate and justify and say was warranted.
Mm-hmm.
That's absurd. And they said that officer, Derek Chauvin, I think his name was, his knee was on his neck for like a minute and a half after he went unconscious.
Man.
And after the paramedics showed up.
Wow.
So, from my POV, he set out to kill that man.
He had his hands in his pocket
like it was a regular day. And if he didn't set out to kill that man, he just deemed his life invaluable. He didn't think to himself to be like, let me check on him. Is he still breathing? Let me let up. He was handcuffed. There was 2 other officers there, or 3.
Yeah, 3. 4 in total.
So you either set out to kill that man, you knew you were killing him, or you just didn't care to see if he was still alive. You didn't value his life. There's no justification there. And that's crazy. And I think that was the reason why the world took to the streets and started protesting.
Definitely. The interesting thing that kind of pissed me off was people who disagreed with what happened with George Floyd and Derek Chauvin. A lot of people were using his health conditions, like, oh well, he had a hypertensive heart, so
right.
let's justify why he died because of his diet or his state of health. But regardless of your state of health, you see somebody in a wheelchair,
right?
Are you gonna put your knee on their neck because? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
And that goes back to the whole COVID situation, right? The conversation where it's like, you never know what someone's dealing with. You don't know if they have underlying health issues. When the police roll up and detain somebody, that is something they should also be thinking of. Does this person have asthma? Should I be putting them in this type of headlock for this long? If someone's saying, I can't breathe, it could be in part because I have asthma, coupled with the fact that you're choking me. Like, that's something that should... So the fact that he had pre-existing health conditions, yeah, a lot of people have pre-existing health conditions. Mm-hmm. So me having pre-existing health conditions coupled with you strangling me and choking me and your knee on my neck, yeah, I'm going to die. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's not an excuse. That's not a justification. Murder is murder. And he murdered that man. So he should definitely be held accountable. They did charge the officers, or they charged him with second-degree murder, I believe.
Yeah.
And they charged the other officers with aiding and abetting. So hopefully, God willing, we see justice in that case. I would say that one in particular, I think because he was... just the severity of it. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. There was 4 officers on him.
He's videotaped.
It's in HD.
Clear.
It's in HD quality. He screamed out for his mom. Grown-ass man.
That right there.
Screamed out for his mom.
And his mom passed away years ago. So when you're a grown man in your 40s and you're realizing in your mind you're about to take your last breath, right, and you're pleading for your last breath,
right,
and you cry out for your mother, that's instinctual.
While the person killing you has their hands in his pocket.
That's instinctual. You're going back to like childlike state where you have to cry out for your mom knowing that she's passed.
Knowing you're a grown-ass man.
You're a grown-ass man.
Right.
That's the saddest part.
I think that, coupled with the fact that everyone was on lockdown due to COVID and just kind of watching this.
Just watching.
And couldn't block it out and couldn't, ignore it.
Use our regular life to distract you from the reality of what's happening.
the reality in this country, and the reality that a lot of us face. People couldn't ignore it, so people took to the streets, COVID or not, and protested, man, and took a stand. Um, and that definitely sparked a lot of change in a lot of areas. I think there's a lot more change to be had and to come. We got to keep fighting. We got to, keep protesting. We got to keep mobilizing. We got to keep pushing the, agenda for equality.
Definitely.
Um, so that is an ongoing fight, but that was definitely a big bullet in 2020.